Welcome to GovCon Unscripted, where we dive into the unfiltered stories and strategies from all around the world of government contracting. Join host Chelsea Roberts as she explores how to navigate, thrive, and win in this complex but lucrative industry.
Welcome to GovCon Unscripted. This is your host, Chelsea Roberts. Today's episode is a part of a series that we're calling Success After Service. We're featuring brilliant minds with wisdom to share from throughout the federal ecosystem, folks that served in the military and have transitioned out and found some success after their time, either in federal or military service. I hope that you enjoy this episode and the series, and if you haven't yet, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the podcast with your friends. All right. Hey, everyone, and welcome back to GovCon Unscripted. I'm your host, Chelsea Roberts, CEO of Collaborative Compositions. And today I've got with us Michael Allison, CEO and founder of the Adversity Academy, author, and keynote speaker. Michael, who are you and what do you do?
Hey, Chelsea, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here with you. As you mentioned before, I'm the founder and CEO of the Adversity Academy, which we do leadership development training, and also a keynote speaker and author too as well, which is something that I actually love to do whenever I get a chance to share my story and help to make an impact to audiences that are listening, just trying to key in on some things that could help change their lives too as well.
And you are also a Marine, is that correct?
Most definitely. Served in the Marine Corps for 8 years as an amphibious assault vehicle section leader. Probably the 8 best years of my life where I got a chance to just tour the world and just work with some phenomenal men that I could actually say are true brothers now to this day.
Now, what motivated you to join the Marines, if you don't mind me asking?
So to be quite honest with you, for me to join the Marine Corps, I had the opportunity to play football and to go to University of Wisconsin and tore my ACL, MCL in high school, and the scholarship got taken away. And when I was always in high school, I always used to walk by the recruiters. If you ever see like recruiters in high school out of the cafeteria, you always see them, they're lined up. And I never thought the Army uniform was cool. I never thought the Air Force uniform was cool. I always thought the Marine Corps, they just look super sharp. They look super clean. I think I heard Ray Lewis talking about this on another podcast that he was on, but the Marine Corps uniform just always seemed to be the one that was most attractive. So anyhow, Staff Sergeant Noda made a beeline over to me one day when he saw that I was a little bit disappointed from getting the news. And he came over to me and started speaking to me more so about the Marine Corps, some of the benefits that came with it, what the Marine Corps stood about. Because for me, I never had a family member that actually served in the military. So he was the first person to actually share that information with me. And besides that, any other message that she was getting about joining the Marine Corps from a TV standpoint. So got a chance to know him. And besides that, he gave me some information, took that to my mom and dad. Shared it with mom and dad. I will be honest, mom and dad was like, hell no, you're not joining the military. But he convinced them, spoke to them. And after that, I changed my life for the next 8 years.
Wow. So right out of high school.
Yeah, 17 years old. They signed a waiver and they showed up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I was swearing in on South Carolina.
Wow. And where was that? In South Carolina?
I was in Paris Island, South Carolina, is where I did.
So You said you spent 8 years in the Marines. What are some of the biggest lessons that you learned during your time while serving?
Definitely. I think some of the lessons that I learned while serving was, number one is discipline is a form of, I look back now at it as like the form of self-respect and self-love for yourself. And it's the willingness to do things that are uncomfortable, but you know that at the end of the day, it's going to help you to be successful. And the number one thing for me was discipline. And I've applied that in every single thing that I wanted to do in my life to become successful. And it was throughout the hard times, through the tough times, to the times where I didn't want to do something, and just being disciplined, it keeps you rigid just to push through with anything that you want to achieve in life. The second thing I would say that I learned is that when you have some core beliefs and core principles that you will stand on and believe in, and things that you will die for, and things that you will actually go after, those are some things that are truly important for me. And whenever I look at like my faith, and whenever I look at like my brotherhood, and I look at the things that I truly value, my family, those types of things, it makes me look at life from a different perspective and pursue things from a different perspective. So for me, my faith is number one when all things that I do, and I just always put God first in every single thing that I do with the decisions that I was making. And that's something that I had to start applying now, because I will say that initially, sometimes I would fade away or drift away from that. The next thing is I see, how can I have anything that I do is going to be honorable and respectful for myself and for my family too as well. So it's ethical things that I'm going to do, that if I work with a customer, when I work with a client, all those types of engagement, I'm going to do it ethically to make sure that I never have a bad reputation for myself or for my company or for my brand. And I think the Marine Corps actually teaches those things, to uphold some of those values in regards to just always doing the right thing at the right time, where you are always going to be honored and respected in every single thing that you do.
That's fantastic. Those are absolutely incredible values to take out of something like 8 years in the service. What made you decide to transition out?
I decided to transition out. I thought it was a time for me to get out. I'll be honest with you. After going to Iraq and experiencing being blown up by a VBID car bomb and putting my best friend in a body bag, I will say that kind of took a toll on me just mentally, and it was just exhausting. And then shortly after that, I became an instructor where I was teaching officers how to do the same thing in Quantico at the basic school. And you just keep replaying some of these things and going over and again. And I just needed a break to take some time away from that. So the transition was not the easiest transition, but I just felt like I had to just try to step away from that and just try to do a little bit something different to just get out of some of those things that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. When you're in the military, like, your life is the military on a day-to-day basis. So for me, just step away and just take a break was something that I needed to do.
What were some of the most difficult things that you feel like you faced when you made your transition?
Some of the most difficult things was, I think most veterans struggle with this, and there's a couple of things. Number one thing is the transition. And if you really do not have a plan when you transition, it could be one of the most difficult times of your life. And I thought that I was prepared, ready to get out, but I really wasn't. So I served for 8 years, but I did not actually apply or use anything educational wise. So I was trying to go back to school and try to get a degree, but navigating how to get into college, no one teaches you that when you're in. So like when you transition, you're trying to navigate that or figure things out. So that was one of the hardest transition of making a decision to go to school. Now you have to figure out a way to get employment, right? You just left one paycheck, so you're trying to transition to find another paycheck. So getting a resume together, preparing for interviews, doing all these things. How does your MOS apply to a regular normal job? And that was a difficult transition for me. So I tried to work one of those jobs and go back to Iraq to do one of those types of jobs, but more so as a contractor, as a civilian contractor. And that was a hard transition. Then I tried to go work for the police department. And eventually I landed a job working on the railroad. And that worked out for me for about 5 years, but that was a hard transition for me too as well. And another thing, is as a veteran now, looking back at it, I will say that you have to be like mentally prepared, especially if you're someone that served in combat. And if you don't have like a space where you could land on when you're trying to deal with PTSD, traumatic brain injuries, moral injuries, all of these things that are tied to that, isolation is real. You have these flashbacks is real. And if you don't have nowhere to go, you lose that brotherhood that you was a part of. You lose that sense of identity as part of. You lose so many things that was like mission driven, purpose driven. And when you get out, if you don't have some of those things, you could actually just filter out to the world, and anything could make you susceptible to a lot of things that could take you down the line of drugs, homelessness, all of these things that you're trying to avoid. But the Marine Corps had their hands wrapped around you when you think about it from that standpoint.
Do you feel like you had those resources available to you to help guide you in the right direction, if you will? And how did you find those?
Quite frankly, I would say that it was not the easiest transition, and I don't think they were readily available to you. I would say like the Marine Corps or the military, I would say, try to do a job with this thing they call TAPS, which is a transition assistance program to get you out. But it's like jam-packed in a 1 to 2 day workshop, seminar training, and this a person from different departments, different entities is just coming up to speak to you for about 1 hour. In 1 hour, you're not going to get every single thing that you need to know about your GI Bill. You're not going to get every single thing you need to know about your medical, your disability payments, how to buy a house, how to get a job. You're not going to learn all those things in 1 hour. And it takes more than just that. And that's where I think there's a gap where when you transition out of the military, if those things are not there to equip us as veterans, it could be a potential hindrance or problem for many of us when we transition out.
Now, where do you feel like the best resource that you found in making your transition was?
I turned out to be my best resource. I had to become very resourceful and
Yeah.
to actually navigate how to figure some things out. I will say when I started navigating out, it came to a head when I was working on a railroad and I got called for a suicide. And as soon as I got called there for the suicide, I started having flashbacks. And as soon as I started having flashbacks, I checked myself into the emergency room. And then I found myself into the VA hospital. And I realized that the help that I was getting was not the help that I needed. And then from there, I went to get some help at another medical facility. And then once I was there, I started connecting with other veterans, and other veterans were sharing information to me like, hey, you could do this, hey, you could do that. And the veterans network is who started connecting me with different entities of, hey, you could do this for your mental health. You could do this for jobs. You could do this if you want to start a business, and all of these different things, how to leverage some of those things. And it was through that pipeline, through that network of the veteran community sharing this type of information with me. Once you come out into the civilian world, most civilians are not thinking about veterans in that capacity. So you needed somebody to be there to help you to do some of those things.
That's what I hear often is a lot of folks really struggle with trying to find that network and that camaraderie of folks that they had when they were in the service, and being able to reconnect with those folks that they find that they've got so much in common with. It tends to be a challenge because you're absolutely right. Folks on the civilian side, they aren't thinking of veterans constantly. It's not on the forefront of their mind. So it's not something that they are readily able to deal with and help veterans deal with. So I think that it's incredibly important that you found that tribe, if you will, of veterans that were there and could share some common experience and could share some resources that they found to be helpful.
Most definitely. And it turned out to be a group of people throughout my entire career now that has poured back into me. And that's the same thing that I do now, where I have tons of resources that I've gathered over the past 20 years since I've been out. And that's something that I'm readily available to share to anybody that comes to me, or just things that I post on social media or share throughout my different groups that I'm in.
Now, what encouraged you to go off on your own?
So for me, I decided to step off on my own for a couple of reasons, and it's actually tied to what we're actually talking about. So I worked on the railroad for about 5 years. And when I was going through that transition, and I had multiple suicide people try to take their lives on the railroad, and that started bringing up flashbacks for me. And I decided I needed to get help. And I actually lost my job because I went to go get mental health help. From there, I went back home and I just started working on my own mental health. And I went back to school and started just going to the hospital and volunteering. And I realized a lot of our veterans were going through some of the same things that I was going through as I was volunteering there. I eventually landed a job and started working in Washington, D.C. And I became a government contractor, became a IT project manager, and I'm working under the leadership of General Shinseki, get a chance to work with Colin Powell and all of these other great leaders in Washington, D.C. And that turned out to be a phenomenal career with all of the things that I was doing and the leadership that I'm learning from. And it was a great time. And eventually, I was going through some personal problems in my life, and I requested to get moved back to Florida. I landed in Tampa, Florida, and I'm starting going through some personal problems, and I need to get some medical help. And as I was trying to get some medical help, I came into a supervisor that made it very difficult for me to get mental health treatment, any types of help that I needed for myself. And I realized that this was always going to be a constraint if I was trying to take care of my own personal health. And that's when I decided that I'm no longer going to put my health in anybody's hands. No longer am I going to put my career in anybody's hands. And I'm going to take a stand and do something for myself. And this is when I said, I'm going to start learning more about entrepreneurship, learning more about business. And that's when I went back to school, got my MBA in business. I went to the University of Florida to learn about entrepreneurship. And then I started taking some government contracting courses, because when I was in the government, I was actually someone that did project management, did government contracting. I was certified to do government contracting. So I said, I'm going to create my own company and add the government contracting piece to my business. And once I transitioned out of the military, I said, this is something that I have the skills in what I could do, and I could leverage this and start helping people. And from there, that's when I started my own business and started running my own company. And that transition turned out to be one of the best decisions I've made for myself.
Now, what does your company do?
So interestingly, the first company that I started was called Groomed and Tailored. And the business itself came from the idea of when I got married. And when my wife was getting all of these grooming services, I was saying to myself, man, I wish guys could get some of these grooming services too on their wedding day. So we started the company and the company did very well. But I will say the downside to that was the logistics of actually going to different locations and doing the haircuts, the manicures, the pedicures, all of these things all over the world for these weddings. So it was a bit taxing when it comes to that side of it. So I said, how can I leverage this and apply some government contracting into this business? And then we created products. So when we created some of the products, we had the opportunity to create products for prisons, for prisoners and stuff. So that's one of the aspects of some of the things that we created where prisoners could use some of the men's grooming products that we had. And then we also got the products on Amazon too as well. Amazon had a program where they were running for minorities, or if you had certain types of disability certifications, then you would be qualified to work with them. So we got our products on Amazon, and that helped us out tremendously with tons of sales. And then with the government contracting, that was another opportunity from there. The second business that I wanted to get into was I wanted to get into construction, but I didn't really want to start a business from ground up again. So I bought a franchise. And I bought a painting construction company here in South Florida. And when I bought that company, obviously, if you know anything about a franchise, it's pretty much a plug and play type of business. So once we did that, we got it up and running. And once we got the business up and running, we're doing lots of residential homes. But then I said, let me get my business certified to get government contracting. And I did that again. And then we started landing quite a few different commercial jobs here locally in the state of Florida. And that turned out to be one of the biggest successes that I've ever had, where was landing some big commercial jobs. And then from there, for me, I had lots of things going on in my personal life while I was running this business. I was having like tons of success doing that. But for me, I'll be honest with you, I really didn't feel I was truly having or living my life in the purpose that I was meant to live my life, and the type of purpose that it was for. So then I'm praying, I'm asking God, what is it that you want me to do? And it was like, tell your story, tell your story. And I decided to go back in and I write my book. And after I write my book, I get asked to come and do a TED Talk. And after getting asked to do a TED Talk, I'm being asked to, hey, can you come in and tell your story, but can you work with our team, work with our organization? And I'm like, oh, people will actually ask you to come in and coach and consult and train on some of the things that I've been through. And from there, I realized that I could actually take my life experiences, my life stories, and turn those into training programs, workshop programs, and help other companies, help organizations that are dealing with some of these things in the corporate space, being that I've been in the corporate space 20 years ago. So being able to leverage that, I created my company, the Adversity Academy. And now I was fully ingrained into doing government contracting. So from there, I learned how to create our workshops, our leadership development programs, our retreats, our summits, all of these different things to help organizations create the consulting pieces of thing and create the assessment pieces of thing, and now go back into the workforce and help corporate companies with some of the things that they could be struggling within the leadership development space.
That's quite the story and quite the journey from some sort of far end of one spectrum to the different end of the other. That's quite impressive.
The beauty in it was that as much as I enjoyed telling my story on stage and see the maturation of what came from that, when I was actually in the government, that's what I was doing. I was creating leadership development programs for our senior executives in Washington, D.C. So having that skill, having that experience, it came pretty natural for me just to do that. And getting in front of people and speaking and teaching was something that I was already doing, especially when I was in the military leading troops at the same time. So it was a seamless transition for me getting a chance to do that.
I love that. It seems like you were able to take a lot of the skills that you were able to develop in your time with Marines and take those out and transfer them into something that's just as useful for the next group of commercial folks.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. So many people find that they really struggle to match those skill sets that they develop within the government service and within the government sector and transition and translate that into civilian world, into commercial services, into job position, but in the civilian world. So it's impressive that you've been able to do that, and from so many different angles too. I love that you started a service just for men getting married.
Yeah, I never even thought I would get into that space, but it turned out to be a pretty fun opportunity to meet some of these guys and just know that you're going to go through that experience on your wedding day, and now you're seeing what it's like for them to go through it, but now they're experiencing it from like a luxury pampering standpoint, and now they're having a good time with their guys too as well.
I love that. I was married recently this year. I thank you very much. That was probably one of my favorite parts, was all of the amazing beauty and care treatments that I got. They were all great. So that's fantastic. So what are you actively doing now with your business? How have you grown? How long has it been? How long have you had it?
Yeah, so we've had our company now going on 4 years. And initially when we started off, I started off very small and just doing local workshops, doing local training. And from there we have evolved. So we've landed 4 contracts now here locally in the state of Florida, where we're doing leadership development training. We also landed some merchandise contracts too as well with some of the local elementary school, middle schools in Orlando and Osceola here with some of the school districts. And then a beautiful thing that we've had the opportunity of doing is doing these 5-day leadership development retreats and training. And those are some great opportunities that have evolved and came about just from me doing the keynotes. So after I do some of these keynotes, people are saying, hey, Michael, can you come and train our team and work with our organizations? And that has been a tremendous impact or benefit to our business just for me going to talk about some of my own experiences. But now when people look us up and see what we have going on, they're like, oh, you guys do 5-day training and our team needs this. So we've developed these programs that are for like your frontline supervisors, people that are just getting into leadership or just got into a leadership role, then people in the middle management. So we have a leadership training for people that are in middle management that are either just got promoted or getting ready to go to the next level. And then we have the leadership development training for our senior executives. And that turns out to be a phenomenal training with a lot of our leadership companies out there need that, especially for the companies that are outsourcing these types of training as well.
That's interesting. I think a lot of folks don't necessarily realize that those types of services are out there, that they can get that sort of one-on-one training and go through a cohort even in a 5-day retreat program, which sounds amazing. That sounds like something that I would absolutely sign up for. I would love to go on a 5-day leadership retreat because it blends the 2 things that I love most, like vacationing and activities and leadership growth and development. So that sounds like it's going to be an incredibly successful line of business for you. Are you working with government contractors? Have you ever engaged with folks that are on the B2G side? So any of the government contractors in the realm that maybe you used to work with?
Yeah, definitely. So it's an interesting dynamic for someone that actually was a contractor and being in that space and then being on it from this standpoint. So you understand when it comes to like your proposal writing, the things that you need to get certified for and the process of what it takes and how to team up with people and partner and leverage that. So for me, every single person that I've built a relationship or worked with previously in the past, I went straight back to those people like, hey, let's partner, let's work on some of these things. So some of them actually are some of my trainers as well too, where they got certified to do some of my training. Then some other relationships that I've had was through some of the assessments that we've done previously in the past. So now we partner with other companies to do some of the leadership development assessment so we can have a baseline. And then when you complete the program, what it looks like after you complete the program. And then the follow-up, we do things semi-annually or annually as well to see where you and your team is at when it comes to the assessment too as well. So that's some of the opportunities that we've leveraged in regards to like people that I've worked with before in the past. Now, from people that I've worked with before, so I formed a relationship with the USDA, I formed a relationship with NASA because of some of the things that I've done previously in the government. So being able to speak to these people and work with some of these people, it's a really healthy relationship where obviously things are done ethically, but now you get a chance to actually learn and keep up to date with what's going on in the government entity, especially if you're not actually in it on a day-to-day basis too as well. And I have tons of friends that still work for the VA when I was working at the VA. And I have tons of other friends that are also like still serving in the military that kind of give you a little taste of what's actually going on in the military too as well.
I'm sure it's incredibly helpful that you speak their language, that you're able to communicate effectively with them because you've done so before in a professional and in a service role. I think oftentimes one of the most overlooked things by folks that have never served is that people who have served and been either a federal employee or been in the military, they have the opportunity to speak the language of the customers that you're trying to engage with, especially on the federal and state and local side. They bring that definite advantage when it comes to trying to engage with customers like that. So I think that's that's fantastic. So if people want to get a hold of you, if people want to reach out and if they want to work with you, say they want to set up a leadership retreat, how do they find you?
Well, definitely you can reach me at mallison@theadversityacademy.com. And you can actually just go to our website, theadversityacademy.com, or you go to my personal website, michaelwallison.com, and you'll find all of my emails, my phone numbers. And once you fill out the contact form, then it'll send you my calendar link. You can book a 30-minute meeting with me, and we can actually talk about our programs, our coaching, our consulting, our retreats, you name it.
And what's your next book about? You said you were coming out with one.
I'm so excited that my new book is coming out. It's called Break the Bottle, and it's about shattering limitations. It's actually being solutions thinking and how to achieve extraordinary success. And the book is really talking about some of the things that we actually truly bottle in, and how could we shatter some of those things, and that could take us to the next level, take us to the next stratosphere. Many of us struggle with fear and doubt and anxiety, and it cripples us and it makes us not take action when we could have so many other things that are in abundance for us when it comes to our careers, our businesses, our families, our health, you name it. And if you apply the framework that I talk about inside of this book of decision, direction, destinations, the 3Ds, you'll get extraordinary success.
That sounds incredible. I love the title. That sounds like a fantastic book for folks to pick up and read. Where's that going to be out on? I'm sure
Well,
they can get it on Amazon, hopefully.
It's coming out September 12th, and it'll be released. Everybody could go out and pick it up. For one day only, it'll be 99 cents. After that, then you're going to have to pay full price for it. And once it's released, you could all pick it up for your paperback, your hardback, your hardcover, and also the audiobook too as well. So anybody could go out and pick it up. And I would love if you give me your feedback, if you go ahead and fill it out on Amazon, or you can fill it out on Audible, or you can fill it out also on Barnes & Noble too as well.
That's fantastic. It's going to be available in a variety of different places for folks to pick up in a variety of different formats. We'll make sure that we get the links to that all put in the show notes. And even if this episode comes out after then, we'll make sure that we get all the links for folks to go direct by into the show notes. And then we'll also include all of your website and information. And now you're on LinkedIn as well too, right?
Yes, I'm on LinkedIn as well too.
Perfect. We'll make sure we get that link in the show notes as well. This has been a fantastic conversation. I've picked up so many enlightening and inspiring pieces of information, tips, tricks, and all the sort that I'm sure our audience is going to love. Thanks so much for joining me today, Michael.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of GovCon Unscripted with your host, Chelsea Roberts. Do you have a GovCon story or need guidance in government contracting? Connect with Chelsea on LinkedIn to be a guest on the show or to enhance your business strategy. Don't forget, your network is your net worth. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with your growing GovCon community.